So, was Chica's Secret Party written by AI? Well, we'll be finding out today by running real tests, and we'll see. But apparently, someone thought it was a great idea to release another Ultimate Guide. And honestly, after Scholastic's last attempt, we weren't really all that excited for this. But there was actually supposed to be a FNAF fan that was going to be looking over everything and making sure everything was correct. But it wasn't until some leaked images of the table of contents that we start asking some questions. Because Chapter 13 was called Chica's Secret Party and no one had ever heard about it. But I have been absolutely shocked to see what Chica's Secret Party has done to the FNAF community in less than a couple of months. We went from just speculating still about mysteries like the FNAF 4 box and Midnight Motorist to saying we have completely solved them just from Chapter 13 of a book that has clip art that's upside down on the back cover. Basically, in the book, Chica's Secret Party is a minigame that was said to be released on Scott Cawthon's website for only 3 days back in 2016. In this minigame, we pilot Toy Chica as she walks around, presumably in the Midnight Motorist house, as she feeds cupcakes to crying babies and doing tasks. She runs into shadow figures, sees Bonnie outside the house window, she comes across the FNAF 4 box and gets a glimpse inside, she sees Desk Man, she talks to Fredbear. But I have to say that this chapter is a complete pain to read. The chapter feels like it was written by AI. We're actually going to test that right now. We're going to see if Chica's Secret Party was written at all by AI and how much we can actually trust it. So I'm using GPT-0, and also, is this AI written to do these tests? We're going to run both of them and see how they compare. And so right here, I just have all of the text from that chapter, so we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it right here into this dashboard, and we're going to scan it. And it says that they are 100% confident right there that this was written entirely by a human. So that's very interesting. Let's see what this one says. Okay, so we have a 40% AI likelihood. So to be honest, with these two comparisons, I think it's safe to say that most of this, if not all of it, was written by a human, and that human thought was put a lot into writing this chapter. First of all, I do not think that this game really actually existed on Scott's website, mainly because right underneath that in the paragraph, it says go check out fan wikis to learn more, and this was the first time anyone has heard about Chica's Secret Party. So if that's not real, most likely the fact of it actually being online for 3 days while people were checking Scott's website every hour is a little much. I even went back through the source code of Scott Games and couldn't find any reference to Chica's Secret Party, and I even looked on the Wayback Machine, which has archived all of the activity on that website, and found nothing, unless it was called something different, which I still think there would be record of it. So yeah, this did not exist, at least on Scott Games. So now that we've established that, what can we take away from this, and who's ultimately behind Chica's Secret Party? It is entirely possible that these are real clues to help us solve the FNAF lore, but it's just as plausible to say that this is Scott being a troll again, giving us false information to jump head over heels over ourselves like we do every single time something like this happens. And the reason because of this is I've already been seeing multiple FNAF theorists start saying that they've solved Midnight Motorist or what's in the FNAF 4 box and how it completely changes the FNAF timeline based all off of a 4-page chapter on an 8-bit minigame that we never knew existed. Firstly, everyone is saying that this is the Midnight Motorist house. Now, this isn't explicitly said in the text, but it is shown on one of the screenshots, and I would agree this is the Midnight Motorist house. But then everyone went on to say that when we get to the child's room, there is one crying child in there, which means that this is the crying child, and that he is the runaway which broke out of the window, therefore signifying that this is William Afton's house. Well, there's a couple problems with that. It strictly says crying baby, not crying child. And also in the bathroom, there is one crying baby. So that doesn't seem to add up enough for me to say that this is actually the crying child's house. Also, I think what else is interesting is that actually Desk Man shows up in this house. And if this is William Afton's house, then why is Desk Man there? Another interesting aspect is everyone is saying that Well, Chica sees Bonnie outside the window, and therefore, since this is William Afton's house, it can't be Spring Bonnie, because why would William Afton be luring his own child out of the home? Well, here's the problem with that. If we now know that it's Bonnie being outside of the house, we know that the animatronic footprints there have to be from a Bonnie animatronic. Now we know the footprints wouldn't match up with Toy Bonnie, since Shadow Bonnie is pretty much the shadow of Toy Bonnie. Regular classic Bonnie's footprints wouldn't quite match there, but there is one character in the FNAF franchise, at least in the games, that we haven't seen, perfectly 3D modeled, and that would be Spring Bonnie. We've seen Springtrap, but we've never actually seen Spring Bonnie in its full form. So really, that's the only variant that's still left, which possibly those footprints could honestly belong to. So I still think it's plausible to say that it was William Afton in the Spring Bonnie suit outside of the window. But if you believe that it's William Afton's house, then yeah, that completely falls apart, but you're only basing that off of the crying baby that was in the kid's bedroom. And again, because now everyone thinks that this is William Afton's house and that this solves Midnight Motorist, they're starting to make speculations about pretty much the entire FNAF timeline, because some of those characters wouldn't have existed at that point if Midnight Motorist takes place in the year in which we think it does. People are starting to say that, the MCI victims took place way before 1985, and it completely rearranges everything. Another thing that a lot of people are saying is it's possible this was a scrapped minigame from Pizzeria Simulator, because at the end of the logbook, there's the weird picture of, dismantled looking Chica that never really ever connected to anything. That's an interesting point, but to be honest, do we have any evidence of that? No. And to be honest, the character that we seem to be playing as in this 8-bit minigame is Toy Chica, not this really strange looking withered variant of Chica/Toy Chica. So while I think that's an interesting idea, it's not compelling enough to really actually believe. Another thing that a lot of people are saying, and I think is possible, is that this is actually the beginning of an ARG. Now, this is something we've wanted from, the FNAF community for a long time, but to be honest, it's never really happened. And whenever we thought it did, it ended up not being. But it goes to show that this is something we've been waiting for, and it's possible that this is the beginning of it. People have been looking around online forever trying to find a reference to Chica's Secret Party, and people have gotten caught up in a couple hoaxes, but we've never found anything official. And honestly, I would think that by this point, it's already been, a couple months in, we would have seen something else happen. So unfortunately, while I think it's possible this could be an ARG, I just don't think it's likely. I also don't think that this would have been Scott's best choice to start an ARG. I feel like maybe something more in a game would have been a bit more appropriate than a Scholastic handbook, which has already in the past had so many mistakes, and it just doesn't make sense. Now here's something that I thought was interesting. Why is it that Chica's Secret Party is very, very similar to Chica's Party from FNAF 3? I mean, just look at the comparisons. In both of them, we play as Toy Chica. In both of them, we're collecting cupcakes to feed to crying babies. And in both of them, there are shadow figures that chase us. Don't believe me? Well, what's this then? Literally a shadow balloon boy chasing Toy Chica around. So it just strikes me, very wrong that these are such similar games. And there's only one key word difference that sets them apart: Chica's Secret Party and Chica's Party. And if this game really actually was real, it's entirely possible that this was merely an extension of the original Chica's Party. In fact, there might be some evidence of this. Recently, while doing some research for this video, I stumbled across a YouTuber who discovered a secret hidden room in Chica's Party. After you fall down a couple layers and get to the Shadow Balloon Boy area, he was able to remove a barrier which allowed him to go inside of an unused room that has a single balloon. And when you go towards the balloon, the game ends. So with that, it kind of does show the evidence that this may have been a larger minigame than what we have in FNAF 3. And it's possible the parts that were scrapped is what Chica's Secret Party could have been. Now, I'm not saying that that solves Chica's Secret Party. I merely think there's some very interesting comparisons to take into consideration. So what does that mean going forward if this was written mostly or entirely by a human? Well, I think it's safe to say that a lot of thought was put into it, and that I don't think we should just ignore it, but at the same time, I think we have to be careful. Because like we all know, Scott is a complete troll and likes to play jokes on us. Guys, we're talking about a man who would set up fake release dates and release whole fake 8-bit mini games as opposed to the actual game. To be honest, it's been a while since Scott has pulled a troll on us, so we're kind of setting ourselves up. It's also been a long time since we've gotten such a massive, lore-changing thing that this would be the perfect time to do something like that. So until we get more confirmation about this game, possibly in the next newest game from Steelwool, or possibly something else, I think it's time that we shelve this and just wait to see what happens next. And with that, my fellow FNAFologists, make sure to check out this video where I use the logbook to try to help us determine where sister location fits in the timeline. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.